across the blacktop.
All right, I'm gonna cross the frame here. Camera is rolling. And ladies may begin.
Okay. Do I need to wait till you're done?
No, because you're gonna see who you're with and everything. Go ahead.
Okay. Today is September 9th, 2010, and I'm here with Christina Wirth for Sports Hall of Fame. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And I want to talk a little bit about your family first. Who are your parents and where are they from originally?
My parents are Alan and Diane Wirth. My dad, Alan, was born and raised in Arizona, and my mom is from Northern California, Sacramento area. They met when my dad was actually playing professional baseball, and my mom's sister was married to a guy on my dad's team, and so my mom was with her sister. And then my dad and her met, and I don't actually even know the details, but I know that that's the first time they met, and then from there they started dating. And then when they got married, my mom moved to Arizona. Mm-hmm. So I've been born and raised in Arizona.
And what team did your dad play for?
I'm not sure who he was playing for at the time when they met, but during his career he played for the Oakland A's mainly. Mm-hmm. So.
Northern California, neat. Oakland A's, yeah. Makes sense. So was it just basically the marriage that kind of had kept them settled in Arizona? Like he was originally from Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And then most of his family still lives here. So I have a giant extended family, and most of them are here. My dad has 8 kids in his family, and my mom has 6. So between the two of them, I have lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, but most of my family is here. Mm-hmm. And then, some still in Northern California, a few in Alabama, but most of them are here. So it's kind of neat for family get-togethers and Christmas and things like that.
So where was your dad born at? In Phoenix, or?
I know, I want to say he always lived in Mesa, okay. Which is where I live now. So I think that been in Mesa all his life.
And so the Wirth family on your grandparents' side, did they come from somewhere else to Arizona?
Well, originally, my ancestors are from Germany, and then I know that I had my great grandma and family on my dad's side lived in Pennsylvania for a while, so I still have some extended relatives in Pennsylvania that I don't really know. And I'm not sure exactly who or when they moved to Arizona, but mm-hmm. I know that that's where my grandma and grandpa lived most of their lives.
Okay. I'm just curious to know how far back your family goes, in Arizona.
Yeah, so. I don't really know, but I think that my dad's parents are probably the first, so my grandparents.
Okay, great. And what year were you born?
I was born in 1987.
Okay. And where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Mesa. That's where I lived all my life. So that's kind of what I still call home today, even though my sense of home is a little bit transient right now, kind of all over the place, but Mesa is still home.
Mm-hmm. What part of Mesa did you grow up in?
East Mesa. I actually live on Lindsay and McKellips, to be specific, but it's pretty close to the 202, which is nice because I can kind of get around pretty easy to anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I remember when I was going to Seton, and the first few years that I was in Seton, the 202 wasn't all the way to where I lived, so we would drive all the side roads, me and my sister. When the 202 came in, we were thrilled. We were just flying to school, so that was nice. Took it for granted.
Yeah, there's always a pro and a con to the entrance of new freeways, I guess.
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got interested in sports as a young girl.
Well, I never really knew that, I never grew up thinking, sports are for boys, my whole life. There's 5 girls in my family and I have 1 brother. And so, both my parents played and enjoy sports, and that was just something, it was never really a question of, will you play sports? It was more, what sport will you choose or what sport will you like the best? And so I just tried everything as a kid. I loved it. It wasn't like we were forced to play, but that was just kind of something, my dad came home from work, we went up to the park and we played baseball with the neighborhood kids. And so, then once we started playing more organized sports, I swam, I played tennis, I played volleyball, I played soccer, I just kind of tried it all. And basketball too. Loved them, played softball, just all kinds of sports, but I mean, I loved them. That was what I did in my summers. That's what I just always wanted to do, and that's where I made all my friends. And so when I got a little bit older, I thought, you know what, I really like this. I want to keep doing it. You know, at that point, it was more my choice than it was my parents, you know, making me do anything. And yeah, I'm just really grateful because sports have made a big difference and have taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Pause. Slide your chair to the left, please.
Hold on to that thought.
Keep going. Make a little bit more. And continue. Just angle your body just a little bit, not much. Yes, closer a little bit, just a little bit, just try it. There you go. Mix it up a bit, thank you.
Okay. We just took a break and now we came back. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So when was it you decided that you really liked basketball?
I always liked basketball. That was always one of my favorites, but I'm a very focused person. It kind of sounds silly, but as a kid, I mean, I knew when I was about 10 years old that I wanted to get a college scholarship playing basketball. So when I was 10 or 11, that's when I really became like serious, you know. It just sounds kind of funny, but that's just the kind of kid I was. But I started playing AAU basketball, which is a little bit more, you know, serious and focused than, you know, YMCA or something like that. So that was kind of my initial decision that started, I guess, the path that I'm still on now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you played it with the
AAU,
which stands for
Amateur Athletic Union.
Okay, AAU.
Yeah.
And so were you playing basketball in junior high too?
I was. I mean, that's when I was playing AAU. I didn't play for I played for one of my school teams, and then I actually switched schools and didn't play for that school team because I was playing AAU's kind of, you'll hear people say club, so I was playing club basketball. And so that was kind of more time consuming, and that was more of my focus, so I didn't play for my school team. Mm-hmm. But yes, I was playing.
Okay. Now, what high school did you attend?
I went to Seton Catholic High School, which was a little bit of a commute from where I live in Mesa. It was probably about 20-25 minute drive. But I have an older sister who was at Seton already. And I remember when she was, you know, about to enter high school, she kind of took her like high school visits, you know, just exploring St. Mary's and Seton. Just, you know, I don't know how much of it was actually her decision and how much my parents were just kind of letting her think that she had a say in it. But I remember going to those things too, just because I knew that probably wherever she went was where I was going to go, and so I was kind of interested. But I loved Seton. I still love it. I think that it's a great school, and I mean, it's small. It's you know, some people it's probably not for them, but for me it was great. You know, I love how small it is. I love that, you know all the teachers, even if they're not your teachers. I love that, you know every single person in your class. And I just think that's a really neat atmosphere. And then obviously my basketball experience there was fantastic. So no complaints here.
So it sounds like it was kind of you had more of that stronger sense of community, kind of a close-knit community because it was a smaller school.
Definitely. And I mean, I went to Catholic schools. I went to Christ the King Elementary School from kindergarten through 7th grade, and then actually my 8th grade year I went to a public school just for 1 year, and then I went to Catholic school all through high school. So that's what I knew. I mean, I guess maybe for somebody who, you know, doesn't grow up with that kind of a school experience, it might be a shock, and it might actually be something they're like, wow, this is awful, you know. But for me, I love that, you know, and I don't think I appreciated it as much as I do now, but I know how special that was to have that kind of family atmosphere at school. You know, I know that not everyone has that, and when you have 4,000 kids at a school, you know, it's easy to fall through the cracks, but at Seton, you know, people know you and people care about you.
Mm-hmm. That's great. What years did you attend Seton?
2001 to 2005. I graduated in 2005.
Okay. Now describe your basketball experience during high school.
High school basketball was fun. like I said earlier, I played with my older sister for 2 years, so that was a pretty neat experience. We played together a lot, just on different AAU teams and things growing up, but it's pretty fun to look back now and have those memories. We kind of didn't always like it at the time, but I know that we both think that it's pretty neat that we got to do that. But I played for Karen Self, who has been and still is the coach at Seton, and she's fantastic. She not only is a great coach and a great person, but she was also a great player, which is, I think, a really a neat thing to have in a coach, because there's definitely some coaches who never played who can still be great coaches, but there's a whole different aspect to a great coach when they actually did it. And so with Karen, I mean, she can not only tell me how to do something, she can show me how to do it, and she can, we'd play one-on-one sometimes, and I would just be in awe that she was, so removed from her, playing days, and yet still so skilled. And so I could learn something new from her every day, and I think that was a huge factor in my development as a young player.
Mm-hmm. We were talking earlier about kind of your style of playing and what you bring to the table to a team,
Mm-hmm.
and how she impacted that. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was that she taught you to be as a player?
Yeah. Karen and I have a similar, skill set. We're very different players. We're not at all the same, but neither one of us are very gifted athletically. And I know she would laugh if I said that. Because it's true, she would remind me all the time how slow I was, and I wasn't offended by that. I understood it, and I could just tell, and I knew that not only was I not the most athletic in high school, but I was going to be nearly blown out of the water in college, And so I knew that if I was ever going to be able to compete at a high level, I was going to have to find other ways to, make up for my, my lack of speed, basically. And so Karen, who was a master at it herself in her own playing days, taught me how to use my body, taught me, the fundamentals, good footwork, shot fake before you shoot or you're gonna get your shot blocked, angles on defense, just all kinds of things that she, knew as a player, and then also was able to pass on to me as a coach. Those are the things that really, I kind of had, the seeds were planted in high school, and I, could do them, and then in college, that's where I really was like, wow, okay, I understand now. And so I definitely attribute that to Karen's ability to teach and to show me that.
Okay, great. What was the position that you played in high school?
I've kind of played a little bit of everything. That's another great thing about Karen. I'm 6'1". I was generally one of the biggest players on the team, if not the biggest player. And that was, a lot of coaches would say, okay, you're the biggest player, you're going to be a post, go down low, by the basket. And that would have kept me from reaching my potential, I think, if a coach would have done that, because in college, I'm not the biggest. I was actually pretty mediocre in height, and so I think that it was important for me to be able to develop my all-around skills. That's one of my strengths, I think, is my versatility. I can play, any position that a coach needs me to play, and so Karen was just so great about letting me dribble and shoot and just do everything. I wasn't limited, and so I would get a rebound and the biggest player on the floor, but I would bring it up the floor on my own, and so I think that that's pretty neat, because I know that not everybody has that. I have friends who, I'm 6 foot, so I played post, and it's like, oh gosh, that's why you can't dribble today, and so I know that if I had a coach who would have limited me like that, I could have still done it on my own. But it was fantastic to have a coach who not only, encouraged me to do it, but, allowed me to do it in games, and even said, why aren't you doing it, And so that was pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. I think that's great training.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about some of your most vivid memories of high school basketball. It could be a specific game, could be an experience that you had at any of these different championship types of activities that you're involved with. So.
When we talked about this, I probably gave a different answer, but let's see what comes to my head right now. Some of my most vivid high school basketball experiences, the first one I just thought of was completely unrelated to basketball for the most part, but we took a trip to New York my junior year, and actually went to, my coach Karen is from New York, that's where she grew up, and we actually played against her old high school team, so that was kind of neat. But that was just a really fun experience in terms of, I mean, as high school kids, typically you don't really get to travel that much, especially with a whole team of your friends, and so that was a really neat experience. But in terms of basketball, I mean, we made it. We won region every year. I don't want to take anything for granted, but that's kind of something that, Seton, it's almost, I think they've won 13 years straight now. So, I mean, that's kind of something that's expected. But we made it to the state tournament every year and made it to the state championship twice. My senior year, I guess this is probably my most vivid memory, my last game, we were in the state championship and I had never won, and I was just, all right, this is it, do or die, this is my last game. And I believe we lost by 31 points. So unfortunately, that's my last memory of high school basketball. And I'd actually be really curious to look up that score because I think that I can remember it. I want to say it's 31 points, and if I'm right, which I could be wrong, but if I'm right, that would just, wouldn't be uncommon because I just have a memory like that. Unfortunately, the games the really great memories, I remember those, but unfortunately, the really bad memories, kind of stick with you a little bit longer. Oh my gosh, how did we lose by 31 points my senior year, my last game? So I don't know if that answers your question, but
did that motivate you at all, or kind of push you in any way to, kind of ending the high school career, so to speak, like that? How did that make you feel? What did you learn from that, basically?
No, I hate losing. I think that, that's one of the reasons I've been able to be successful is because I'm so competitive. So definitely, losing that bad, and not only losing, I hate losing, but I hate to be embarrassed. And so to lose by 31 points to me as a competitor is embarrassing. And so that definitely drove me, I said, oh, I'm not letting that happen again, and it was disappointing because, it's always nice as a player when you can say, okay, I'm going to get that back, but as a senior, that's it, you don't have a chance to get that back, specifically. But that definitely drove me to say, was there something more I could have done, and what could I do so that next time, I know that there wasn't an area of my game that was a source of weakness for our team, So that's what I took from it, and definitely used that to just help me focus on my weaknesses and get better.
Mm-hmm. Okay. It's good to have that kind of perspective on it, I think.
Definitely.
Now, we talked a little bit about Karen. Can you tell me a little bit about the recruitment experience to college? Just start a little bit with when you're in high school, you knew you wanted to play college basketball and kind of go from there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like I said, actually when I was about 10, I knew I wanted to play college basketball. So by the time I was in high school, I was, definitely on that path and just trying to figure out where. Also trying to, as a freshman, you're still trying to kind of raise your stock. As a sophomore, same. You're trying to, get the colleges to see you and to, want you. As later in your high school career, that's when it starts kind of narrowing down, and it's not so much, the schools that are interested are the ones that are interested. It's not really going to change much. But Karen was amazingly helpful during that whole process. Like I said, she did it herself, and so I think that was, a big part of her ability to be able to, help me. And I know that I'm not the only one she's helped. I don't know how many girls basketball players have gone on to play in college, but I know Karen was instrumental in every one of those cases. But I just remember it was a pretty overwhelming process. As a 16, 17-year-old kid, you're making a decision that to you seems so life-changing, which it is. It really is. That's where you're going to spend 4 years of your life, and those are the friends that you may have for the rest of your life, and so it can be a great decision or it can be a really bad decision, but thankfully mine was a great one. But Karen was just so helpful, and trying to set timelines for me. Okay, you need to have your schools narrowed down to 10 by this point, and you need to make those phone calls. I hate talking on the phone, and so these coaches would call and leave messages, and you're having to return 20 phone calls in a day, and I would just avoid it like the plague. And Karen, I actually was her teacher's assistant one of my classes, my senior year or my junior year, and she would make me make phone calls during my class, because I would just avoid it, and she'd say, make your phone calls. So that was helpful, just to have somebody who knew what needed to get done and who would make sure that it got done, because fortunately as a kid, you don't always do the things that you need to. So I'm thankful that I had her guidance. And then she was also just a great sounding board constantly. She wasn't at all ever trying to influence my decision or, had an agenda of her own. She was just trying to help me make the best decision. And so I would say something and she would more just listen and kind of play devil's advocate and, well, what about this? Well, have you thought about this? And just kind of, no, I hadn't thought about that, And so I just really appreciated her input and guidance throughout the entire process.
Mm-hmm. That's great. What accomplishments do you remember the most during your time playing basketball at Seton?
What accomplishments?
Mm-hmm. Did you make or break any records or anything like that?
Yeah, well, it's definitely always a great honor for a basketball player to, reach the 1,000-point plateau. And I was blessed enough to be able to score even 2,000 points, so I got honored at both of those milestones. And Karen's just really a special coach in the way that she recognizes her players for those kinds of things. I remember, she would always, be aware of it, probably, even before the player is. And she would generally, if it was within her power, whenever that player scored their basket or their free throw or whatever to put them at that mark, she would try to call a timeout. And she would have, balloons or something hidden, and she would just have like a quick little celebration during the timeout in the actual game. And then, okay, put it away, all right, go play, But it was just neat because a lot of coaches would just kind of be like, okay, But Karen recognizes that's really special and that's a great accomplishment. And I think that's neat that she recognizes players like that. So that was neat. I can vividly remember my senior year of high school. Karen was a math teacher there at the time. And so she was, there every day. And I can remember in between classes or maybe at lunch or something, I can remember Karen running across the campus with an envelope, like a FedEx kind of envelope in her hand, running at me, just waving it in the sky. And I just had no idea what she was doing. She was like, look at this, and she handed it to me. I'm like, what is it? And I didn't really know what it meant, but it was my invitation to the McDonald's AllAmerican game, which is a pretty spectacular honor. I think that it's 24 of the top seniors in the country get to play in that game, and so that was pretty neat. Actually, I don't even remember if that was the right envelope. There was another one when I got invited to go to the USA Youth Development Festival. I had no idea what that was. Thankfully, I had a coach who did, because I probably would have looked at him and been like, it's a scam, or oh, they want my money, they want me to pay for a plane ticket and come and pay for a camp. And Karen's like, no, they're paying for you to come, and I was like, oh, okay. And so those were two things that I just remember Karen at school, letting me know that those, giving me the actual invitations to those things. So those were pretty exciting, and I'm thankful that she knew what they were.
Definitely. Tell me a little bit about the 2005 McDonald's All-American game, kind of what that was about. So you kind of started to talk about it a little bit, and then describe your experience there.
The McDonald's All-American game was great. It's a great memory. When I was actually looking up pictures to give to you, I was looking through my whole album that I haven't looked at for years, and just, wow, that's so amazing. I'm sure that it means nothing to someone who doesn't know women's basketball, but all those little experiences were my first. They were just really eye-opening to me as a player, because I'm playing with the best players in the country, and to this day, I still talk to some of them. I followed all their careers through college, we'd keep in touch. When we'd play each other, that was pretty neat. But it showed me, coming from Arizona, which doesn't have the strongest girls basketball. I got to be exposed to the top talent in the country. And so I think that helped me a lot, just see, people in Arizona think that I'm such a great player, and that's really nice. But if I really want to accomplish what I think I want to accomplish, I need to not be so focused on, okay, right here. Like there's a lot more than just right here. And so that's what that experience kind of meant to me in terms of basketball, was I know where I need to be. But the McDonald's All-American game was actually in South Bend, Indiana at Notre Dame, which was ironically my dream school from the time I was a kid. I have no idea why that became my dream school, but that's where I always wanted to go. And so they didn't actually recruit me very much, which, was always, people would be like, is Notre Dame recruiting you? No, not really, And so when the game was there, I just thought, oh God, you're a funny guy, you have a sense of humor, because at that point I knew that I wasn't going to Notre Dame, but it was just kind of neat that that's where the game was. But I don't know if you know about the McDonald's game, but it's there's a guys team and a girls team, and they're all the festivities and everything are together. So that was pretty neat. They actually have one day where you go to the Ronald McDonald House charity and just kind of and spend time with the families and the kids that are being served by that charity. So that was really neat that they recognize the fact that basketball by itself is kind of meaningless, but basketball that can give back and that can be used as a platform to spread the news about a higher mission, then that's what really sports should be about. Sports by themselves they're fun, but they're kind of ultimately, if all that is a sport and a game, it doesn't have much meaning. So I really appreciate the fact that sports have opened up my eyes to the fact that there's a lot more in the world that I wouldn't have been aware of otherwise if I hadn't had the opportunity to travel and to meet people and just have a platform to kind of to speak from, I guess. So that was pretty neat. The dunk contest, the McDonald's game is always a big attraction. And actually they have, on the night of the dunk contest, they have a few other competitions, and there's a 3-point shootout for guys and girls, and then there's like a 2-ball competition. And I actually wasn't going to enter into any of them. I just I don't really know anyone to team up with, or just I'd rather watch. And one of the guys, the 2-ball competition is one guy, one girl, and one of the guys wanted to shoot, but he didn't have a partner. And so someone said, well, would you shoot with him? And I said, okay, I don't want him to not be able to do it if that's what he really wants to do. And so my partner was Richard Hendricks. He ended up playing at University of Alabama. And so we met, kind of discussed our strategy for about 30 seconds before it was our turn to go. And then basically we had a minute to shoot. We had one ball between the two of us, and there's different spots marked out on the floor with different point values. And you just have a minute alternating. I shoot, he's waiting, I pass to him, he shoots, I spot up. And so we had a minute to just kind of rack up as many points as we could, and then we advanced to the second round, and then we actually won. So that was pretty neat. I wasn't even going to do it, and then we ended up winning, so that was kind of fun. But yeah, all in all, the McDonald's game was just a great experience, and never in my wildest dreams, that wasn't even a goal. I never even thought I could do that, So that kind of said, what, I can do a lot of things that I don't necessarily think I can.
Mm-hmm. Now that sounds like a really fun experience, especially for a senior. So you had kind of that last game of your senior year that was kind of rotten, but then you had these other really great experiences to balance it out. So that's good. Definitely. Now you talked about the USA Youth Development game or competition. Yes. Is that related to the photograph that you had?
Kind of.
Okay, tell me a little bit about that.
The USA Youth Development camp, I don't really know, camp, clinic, whatever you want to call it. No, it's the USA Youth Development Festival. There you go, that's what it is. That happened my junior year, I believe. But that was an invitation to 48 of the top players in the country. And you go to Colorado Springs, that's where the Olympic Training Center is. And we were there for maybe 5 days, something like that. And they split you up into 4 teams, north, south, east, and west. And you just basically are playing against these other girls. And there's, it's basically like like the USA basketball program. It's their way of like kind of getting young talent in early, and then ultimately, I mean, it's no guarantee at all, but ultimately the girls that are in through that program then, can make a world or the USA junior national team, and then the national team, which is the Olympic team ultimately, and so it's just kind of the way that they start kind of learning about players early and following them and knowing, okay, when we need an Olympic team, which players are we going to bring to try out and things like that. So that was neat because, again, actually that was where I first met a lot of the girls that I would later see at the McDonald's game. You just you meet them and see them all the time when you're playing in AAU and then playing in college. So it was just neat to just know all these people from around the country. But my team, I played on the West team at that festival, and we dominated. That was pretty fun. And so after that, actually that was kind of a unique year in the fact that usually they have a youth development festival every year, but that year happened to be a world qualifying year. And so after the festival was over, they asked, I want to say maybe 16 players to stay and try out for the world championship qualifying team. And so I was asked to stay and try out, and then at that point they brought in, I don't know how many more, but a lot more players that were a year older than us, that were in their freshman or their senior year of high school. And so we were basically we were trying out all against each other, and so I never, I was just thrilled. I was thrilled to be at the Youth Development Festival, period. And then I was thrilled that I got invited to stay. And then I actually made the team, and so then I couldn't believe it. And so that year, then we went home, and then we later in the year, we met up and had like training camp and everything to get ready for the qualifying tournament, which was in Puerto Rico. So we went to Puerto Rico in the summer and played against Argentina and played against, we played in Brazil for sure. I think we played against Puerto Rico, and just different teams. It was basically like North and South and Central America was like who was in that qualifying tournament, and at the same time in other parts of the world, there's a qualifying tournament for Africa and for Europe and Asia, and so at the same time all these teams are trying to qualify for the next year, which was the World Championship. And so after that, great experience in Puerto Rico, I went home. Senior year, got invited to try out again for the World Championship team. And so, I went back to Colorado Springs. There's a whole new pool of players that they're looking at. Tried out again. It was even more competitive this time. The miracle of all miracles, made the team. Just couldn't believe it. And then ended up, we trained in San Diego for a while. Actually, they had like a mini tournament in San Diego, and the Chinese national team, and there's another one, can't remember who, but then just another local team. We were just kind of playing like a mini tournament. Australia was there, and then so anyways, that was like practice, and then we went to Washington DC for more like training camp and just scrimmaging and practice and everything, and then we went over to Hungary and had like 2 exhibition games against the Hungarian team just in practice for the World Championship. And then from there we went to Tunisia, Africa for 2 weeks, which is where the World Championship was that year. And so it happens every 4 years, just like the Olympics. And so it's amazing because of the entire thing, but it's amazing too that it was the right year when I was there, and just for the qualifying, and then the next year for the World Championship. And so we won the gold medal, and that's what those pictures are. But that was just incredible. I know that it's not the Olympics, but it's, a pretty amazing opportunity. And to wear USA on my jersey was something that I appreciated it then, and I appreciate it even more now. Just the more that, when I play overseas, and I realize, wow, like America is a great place, that's just a really amazing country, and the freedoms that we have, it makes me even more proud to know that I was able to play for my country.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, that sounds like
it's a long story, but
sounds like a great experience.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. Describe how you came to select Vanderbilt as the college that you would attend.
I had never heard of Vanderbilt until my sophomore year in college, I believe, or in high school. Sorry, I got a letter from them, and just kind of a letter with the whole pile of letters. Every time I'd get a letter, I had like 2 just like baskets from Target that I just kind of toss them in until I got around to opening them. Because a lot of times, they required you to do something. So I was like, I don't have time for that right now. So anyways, that's when I found out about Vanderbilt, which is in Nashville, Tennessee. So it kind of wasn't really on my radar being from Arizona. But I'm a very analytical person, and I took the recruiting process very seriously, even though I didn't always enjoy it. And so when I would get a letter, I would, look up the college and say, all right, where is this place? What are they all about? And so I remember doing that with Vanderbilt, and I kind of, highlighted some key things. I actually like stapled a little packet of information together that I had researched on it, and just kind of filed it away, thinking, all right, it's just one more college, but didn't really think anything of it. But as the process went on, I just, talked to the coaches, and they would watch me play, and eventually, they offered me a scholarship. But as, at your beginning of your senior year, you're allowed to take official visits, which is where they'll pay for you to come out and stay for a weekend, and meet the team and just kind of, see what it's all about. And so you're allowed to have 5 of them. And I had 5 scheduled. I thought, I'm taking all of these. I have no idea where I want to go. And Vanderbilt was my first scheduled visit, and then I had 3 others in between, and then Stanford was my last visit, and I had been to the 3 in between, and so on unofficial visits, which is different, but still I had been there at least. And so I went to Vanderbilt on my visit, loved it, just thought it was great. The team was they were just great girls. I immediately felt like I could see myself here, which, everybody told me the whole time, you'll know when it's right, and I just thought, what does that mean? How am I gonna know what, if I'm supposed to go there for 4 years? But I knew it when I got there that this is just a great place. The coaches are great. I like what they're about. It's a top 20 academic school. And so that was a great visit. So I ended up canceling my next 3 visits as soon as I got back, just thinking, I know that I like Vanderbilt better than those 3. I've been there, but I haven't been to Stanford. So I didn't want to wait for another month and a half till I got to go to my Stanford visit. So I called the Stanford coaches and asked them, is there any way that I can move my visit up? So the next weekend I ended up going to Stanford and took my visit there. And another great school. No complaints. I honestly think that I could have chosen either one and been happy. I think I would have had a great experience either way. But there was just something about Vanderbilt that just kind of drew me there. I think that it was just kind of the chemistry that I just felt with the players. It's not really something that you can measure, but I just kind of knew. So I ended up committing to Vanderbilt, and that ended the process. Then you wait another month or so till November till you actually sign your letter of intent. That makes it official. But that's kind of how the process worked.
Perfect time to answer. She won't have enough time.
Okay.
You have this